Have you ever wondered what lurks in the shadows of those picture-perfect summer getaways? The ones where the sun shines a little too brightly and the nights stretch on forever. Let me tell you about Sarah, a young teacher from Ohio who thought a solo trip to the mountains would recharge her soul after a grueling school year. It was July, the air thick with the promise of freedom, and she'd rented a quaint cabin in the Appalachians, far from cell service and the chaos of city life. She arrived just as the sun dipped below the ridges, casting long, jagged shadows across the dirt road. The cabin was everything the listing promised: rustic, isolated, with a wraparound porch overlooking a dense forest that seemed to whisper secrets in the breeze. Sarah unpacked her bags, lit a fire in the stone hearth, and settled in with a book, feeling the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. But as night fell, the silence grew unnatural, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig outside, like something or someone was circling the property. The first night passed uneventfully, though Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She chalked it up to paranoia from too many horror movies, laughing it off as she sipped her morning coffee on the porch. The day was spent hiking trails that wound through ancient trees, their bark etched with what looked like old carving symbols she didn't recognize, faded but deliberate. By evening, exhaustion set in, and she retired early, the cabin's wooden walls creaking in the wind. Around midnight, a soft scratching at the door jolted her awake. It wasn't the frantic clawing of an animal. It was rhythmic, almost patient, like nails dragging slowly across the wood. Heart pounding, Sarah froze under the blankets, listening as it persisted for what felt like hours before stopping abruptly. In the morning, she inspected the door. Deep grooves marred the paint, too high for a raccoon or bear. Uneasy, she decided to cut her trip short, but convinced herself one more day wouldn't hurt. That afternoon, while exploring a nearby stream, she found an old journal half buried in the mud, its pages yellowed and filled with frantic handwriting. Entries spoke of the watchers in the trees, locals who vanished after seeing figures that mimicked human shapes but moved wrong, too fluid, too silent. As dusk approached, Sarah hurried back, the journal clutched in her hand. The cabin felt colder now, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic like blood. She barred the door and windows, reading the journal by flashlight. The last entry chilled her. They're not people. They wear our faces, but their eyes... God, their eyes are empty. A knock echoed through the cabin, 3 sharp raps, then silence. Sarah's blood ran cold. No one knew she was here. Peering through the peephole, she saw a figure on the porch, silhouetted against the moonlight. It looked like her neighbor from back home, Mr. Jenkins, but that was impossible. He was hundreds of miles away. The figure knocked again, its voice a perfect mimicry. "Sarah, it's me. Let me in, it's cold out here." Terror gripped her as she backed away, realizing the eyes reflecting in the glass were pitch black, devoid of life. The scratching resumed, now at the windows, multiple sets of nails scraping in unison. She hid in the bedroom, phone useless without signal, praying for dawn. Hours blurred into a nightmare. The voices multiplied: her mother's, her best friend's, even her own, pleading, then threatening. "When know you're alone." Open the door. Sarah barricaded herself with furniture, but the cabin shook with impacts, wood splintering. At first light, the assault ceased. Trembling, she fled to her car, engine roaring to life as shapes slithered back into the forest. driving down the mountain. She glanced in the rearview mirror and screamed. Her reflection's eyes flickered black for a split second. Weeks later, back home, Sarah noticed subtle changes, neighbors greeting her with smiles that didn't reach their eyes, whispers following her in crowds. The twist came when she developed photos from the trip. Every shot of the forest showed indistinct figures in the background, wearing faces she recognized from her life, watching, waiting. She burned the journal, but the scratching returned some nights, a reminder that the watchers followed her home. Now, let's shift to the sun-drenched beaches of Florida, where Mark and his family thought a week at a seaside rental would create lasting memories. Mark, a software engineer from Chicago, had booked the place sight unseen, drawn by the affordable price and glowing reviews. They arrived midday, the ocean a sparkling blue expanse, waves crashing invitingly. His wife, Lisa, and their 2 kids, Tommy and Mia, unpacked excitedly, the house's weathered exterior hiding a cozy interior with views of the dunes. The first day was idyllic, building sandcastles, swimming in warm waters, barbecuing as the sun set in a blaze of orange. But that night, as the family slept, Mark awoke to a distant humming, like a low-frequency vibration emanating from the sea. He dismissed it as the AC unit and drifted off, but the sound persisted in his dreams, pulling him toward dark depths. The next morning, Tommy complained of a rash on his legs, red welts that itched furiously. Lisa applied cream, assuming jellyfish stings from their swim. By afternoon, Mia showed similar marks, and the kids grew lethargic, preferring to nap indoors rather than play. Mark ventured into the water alone, feeling an odd current tugging at his ankles, stronger than expected. Diving under, he glimpsed something, a shadowy mass gliding below, too large for a fish, its form undulating unnaturally. Surfacing, he shook off the unease and joined the family for dinner. That night, the humming returned, louder, accompanied by faint whispers carried on the wind, indistinguishable words that sounded like calls for help. Lisa heard them too, but they laughed it off as imagination fueled by the ocean's roar. As days passed, the family's health deteriorated. Tommy's rash spread, forming patterns like veins pulsing under his skin. Maya babbled about friends in the water, who promised games if she joined them. Mark noticed the beach emptying earlier each evening, locals avoiding the shore after dusk. Curious, he chatted with a fisherman at the pier who warned of the tide's curse, legends of an ancient entity that lured victims with siren songs, marking them with its touch before dragging them under. Scoffing, Mark returned home, but that night, the humming intensified, vibrating the windows. Waking abruptly, he found Tommy sleepwalking toward the beach, eyes glazed, murmuring responses to unheard voices. Mark carried him back, but the boy's skin felt clammy, almost scaled. Panic set in when Lisa vanished the next morning. Her footprints led to the water's edge, disappearing into the surf. Mark called authorities, but searches yielded nothing. The kids worsened, their rashes glowing faintly in the dark, and Mark felt the pull himself a compulsion to wade into the waves. That evening, as a storm brewed, he barricaded the doors, but the humming became a chorus, pounding in his skull. Maya slipped out a window, and Mark chased her to the beach, where she stood waist-deep, arms outstretched. Diving in, he grabbed her, but tentacles cold, slimy, wrapped around his legs, dragging them deeper. Fighting free, he surfaced with Mia, but Tommy was gone, his screams echoing before silencing. The family fled inland, but the twist unfolded months later. Autopsies on washed-up bodies revealed hybrid anatomies, part human, part marine, with Mark's DNA matching one. The entity hadn't just taken them, it had reshaped them. And now Mark hears the humming inland, knowing it's calling him back to join his transformed kin. Deep in the heart of the American Southwest, where the desert stretches endlessly under a merciless sun, comes the tale of Elena, a college student road tripping with friends to escape final stress. It was August, the heat shimmering off the asphalt as their old van chugged along Route 66, windows down, music blaring. Elena, behind the wheel, reveled in the freedom-vast canyons, quirky roadside diners, and starry nights camping under the open sky. Her companions, Jake and Sophia, shared stories around campfires, the group bonding over shared adventures. But on the third day, veering off the main highway onto a scenic detour, the van sputtered and died in a remote stretch of badlands, miles from anywhere. No signal, no passing cars, just red rock formations casting eerie shadows as the sun baked the earth. They popped the hood, but none were mechanics. Jake hiked to a distant ridge for better reception, returning empty-handed, but mentioning an abandoned town visible in the distance, its structures weathered ghosts against the horizon. With water running low, they decided to trek there, hoping for shelter or help. The walk was grueling, heat mirages dancing ahead, but as they neared, the town revealed itself. Dustville, a forgotten mining settlement, buildings sagging under decades of neglect. They explored cautiously, finding rusted tools, faded photographs of stern-faced miners, and an old saloon with bottles still on the shelves. In the town hall, a logbook detailed a 1920s catastrophe, a cave in that trapped workers, their bodies never recovered. Whispers of a curse that bound their spirits to the land. As night fell, they camped in the saloon, the desert cold contrasting the day's scorch. Strange noises began, faint tapping, like picks on rock, echoing from underground. Sophia joked about ghosts, but Elena felt uneasy, shadows seeming to shift in corners. Jake vanished during his watch, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark before winking out. Searching frantically, they found his pack abandoned near a mine entrance, boarded up but with fresh pry marks. Venturing in with lanterns, the air grew thick, dust choking their lungs. Whispers slithered through the tunnels, names called in raspy voices. Elena, Sophia, join us. Panic rising, they pressed on, finding Jake slumped against a wall, eyes wide, muttering about the diggers who pulled him down. Dragging him out, they barricaded the saloon, but the tapping grew to pounding, floorboards vibrating. Figures emerged from the dark spectral miners, faces gaunt, tools in hand, eyes glowing with unearthly light. They clawed at the doors, murmuring promises of riches if the group stayed. Sophia succumbed, wandering out in a trance, her screams cut short. Elena and Jake fled at dawn, hiking back to the van, which mysteriously started. Driving away, relief washed over them. But the twist struck when they reached civilization. Photos from the trip showed extra figures in the background, miners, hats and pickaxes clear. Back home, Elena hears tapping under her floorboards, and Jake disappeared soon after, a note left. The diggers call me back. The curse had hitched a ride, binding them to the eternally trapped souls. The isolation of a remote island off the coast of Maine was meant to be a romantic escape for David and his fiancée, Rebecca. They'd chartered a small boat to the uninhabited rock, planning to camp for a week amid crashing waves and seabird cries. Arriving at high tide, the island was a rugged paradise cliffs dropping to foaming seas, a central meadow perfect for their tent. They spent days exploring tide pools teeming with life, picnicking on fresh catches, and watching sunsets paint the sky. But on the third night, a fog rolled in, thick and impenetrable, muffling sounds and turning the world ghostly white. David awoke to Rebecca's absence, her side of the sleeping bag cold. Calling out, his voice echoed strangely, as if the fog swallowed it. Flashlight in hand, he searched the meadow, finding her footprints leading to the cliffs. There, at the edge, she stood motionless, staring into the abyss. Shaking her, she turned with vacant eyes, whispering, "They sing to me from below." Back at camp, she described melodies rising from the depths, voices of lost sailors promising eternal peace. David dismissed it as a dream, but the fog persisted, days blending into a hazy limbo. Supplies dwindled, and Rebecca grew distant, humming tunes that sent chills down his spine. Venturing to the boat, he found its sabotaged ropes frayed. Engine tampered, with though no one else was on the island. Nights brought apparitions, translucent figures rising from the sea, dripping water, arms outstretched. They circled the tent, singing in harmony, their faces bloated and pale. Rebecca joined their chorus, slipping away to the cliffs. David restrained her, but she fought like a possessed soul, nails raking his skin. Desperate, he signaled for help with flares, but the fog devoured the light. On the final night, the singers breached the tent, cold hands pulling Rebecca into the mist. David fled to the boat, repairing it frantically as ethereal forms pursued. Escaping at dawn, he reached the mainland. But the twist revealed itself in therapy. Recordings from the trip captured the songs, and experts identified them as lures from a mythical pod of sirens, evolved to mimic human voices. Rebecca's body washed ashore weeks later, but her eyes were open, staring, and at night. David hears the singing from his inland home, knowing she's calling him to join the drowned choir. In the sweltering heat of a Texas ranch, a group of old high school friends reunited for what they called their annual bro trip. But this year, it turned into a descent into madness for Ryan. The ranch belonged to one of them, vast acres of scrubland dotted with cattle and an old homestead. They arrived with coolers of beer, ATVs ready for off-roading, and stories to swap around the fire pit. Days were filled with riding trails, shooting targets, and reliving glory days. But the nights brought an oppressive stillness, the stars too bright, the darkness too absolute. Ryan noticed at first a faint glow on the horizon, like distant headlights, but no roads led that way. Curious, they investigated on ATVs, finding a sinkhole, edges crumbling, a blue light pulsing from within. Peering down, they saw crystals embedded in the walls, emitting an otherworldly hum. One friend, Mike, tossed a rock in, and the hum intensified, vibrations shaking the ground. Back at the ranch, strange events unfolded, cattle mutilated overnight, organs precisely removed, no blood spilled. The friends joked about aliens, but Ryan felt watched, eyes in the shadows. That night, the glow appeared closer, and Mike vanished, his bed empty, footprints leading to the sinkhole. Searching at dawn, they found him at the bottom, alive but raving about. The light beings, who showed him truths beyond comprehension. Hauling him up, his skin shimmered oddly, eyes reflecting light like prisms. The group decided to leave, but the ATVs wouldn't start, electronics fried. As dusk fell, The glow enveloped the ranch, figures emerging tall, luminous entities with elongated limbs, moving silently. They herded the friends like cattle, touches inducing visions of cosmic horrors. Ryan escaped by hiding in a barn, watching his friends led to the sinkhole, bodies levitating down. Alone, he hiked to the highway, flagging help. The twist came in investigations. The ranch sat on a rare mineral deposit, known to cause hallucinations, but autopsies showed friends' brains rewired, as if exposed to extraterrestrial signals. Ryan sees the glow some nights, wondering if the beings were real or a shared delusion that claimed his friends' minds. Venturing into the lush jungles of Costa Rica for an eco-tour, Amanda and her sister, Claire, sought adventure amid zip lines and wildlife. Their guide, a local named Rawl, led them deep into the rainforest, promising hidden waterfalls and rare sightings. The first days were magical monkeys chattering overhead, vibrant birds flitting through canopy, the air alive with humidity and life. But on a night hike, Rawl warned of the Guardians, ancient spirits protecting sacred sites. Dismissing superstitions, they pressed on, but Claire twisted her ankle, forcing an impromptu camp. As darkness enveloped them, rustlings grew not animals, but deliberate footsteps circling their tent. Rawl whispered prayers, eyes darting. Shadows danced in flashlight beams. Humanoid forms with elongated features, vines twisting like limbs. They attacked silently, dragging Rawl away, his screams fading. The sisters huddled, but Claire was next, pulled through the undergrowth. Amanda fled, branches whipping her face, emerging at a village days later, delirious. The twist rescuers found no trace of Claire or Rawl, but ancient carvings depicted the Guardians as protectors against intruders, and Amanda's photos showed extra figures woven into the foliage. Back home, vines grow unnaturally in her yard, and she hears rustlings, knowing the jungle's spirits followed her. The serene lakes of Minnesota hid a dark secret for the Peterson family during their annual cabin retreat. Father John, Mother Karen, and teens Luke and Emily arrived in June, the lake mirror smooth, perfect for boating and fishing. Days passed in bliss, but nights brought dreams of drowning, shared among them. One evening, Luke found an old locket while swimming, engraved with "Eternal Below." That night, the lake glowed faintly, bubbles rising as if something stirred. Karen sleepwalked to the dock, standing precariously. John pulled her back, but she spoke in a voice not her own. Return what was taken. The family researched, uncovering a legend of a drowned village beneath the lake, residents cursed after a flood. Apparitions began, watery figures rising at midnight, beckoning. Emily was lured in, body found floating, locket clutched. The others fled, but the locket contained a map to treasures, but opening it released the spirits. John hears splashing indoors now, knowing the drowned demand their due. High in the Rockies, a hiking expedition turned nightmarish for Tom and his buddies. Scaling peaks by day, camping by night, they felt on top of the world. But an avalanche warning ignored led to disaster, trapped in a snow cave, air thinning. Hallucinations set in voices promising warmth if they dug deeper. One friend, crazed, clawed at the ice, vanishing into a crevice. Rescued days later, Tom learned the voices were from past victims, echoes in the mountain. The twist, his friend's body was found miles away, frozen smile on face, as if guided by the calls. A cruise to the Caribbean promised luxury for newlyweds Alex and Jordan, but storms stranded them on a private island. Exploring, they found ruins of a plantation, slaves' quarters haunted by chains rattling. Nights brought apparitions enslaved souls, seeking vengeance on descendants. Alex, unknowingly related to the owners, was targeted, dragged to the ruins. Jordan escaped, but the twist historical records confirmed the lineage. And now ghosts visit Alex in dreams, pulling him back. In the vineyards of California, a wine tour became horrific for Lisa's bachelorette party. Staying at an old estate, they heard wails from the cellars. Investigating, they found barrels with human remains, victims of a mad winemaker. The spirit possessed one girl, forcing her to recreate the murders. Lisa survived by burning the estate, but the wine they drank was tainted, and now the possession spreads through shared bottles. The vast savannas of Africa, during a safari, terrified Michael. Spotting unusual animal behavior, guides spoke of a shape-shifter preying on tourists. Nights in camp, roars turned to human screams. His wife was taken, body found mauled but with human teeth marks. The shifter was a cursed guide, and Michael feels changes under full moons. Back to domestic terrors, a RV trip through national parks horrified the Smiths. In Yellowstone, geysers erupted unnaturally, spewing visions of future deaths. Ignoring, they drove on, but accidents mirrored the visions. The father realized the park's spirits foretold fates to those who disrespected nature. The twist surviving. He sees geysers in mirrors, predicting his end. A music festival in the desert turned deadly for Zoe. Amid crowds, she noticed clones of herself, acting oddly. Following one, she entered a tent of mirrors, trapping her in a loop. Escaping. The festival was a cult ritual, duplicating souls for immortality, and now multiple Zoes exist, hunting the original. In Hawaii's volcanoes, a honeymoon hike led to lava tubes where ancient gods dwelled. Hearing chants, the couple was separated. The husband sacrificed. The wife fled, but the twist pregnant. The child speaks in tongues, vessel for the god. The final story unfolds in the Bayou of Louisiana, where a fishing trip ensnared young brothers Tim and Ben. Their boat drifted into forbidden swamps, voodoo markers warning away. Ignoring, they caught a fish with human eyes. Nights brought zombies rising from mud, commanded by a witch. Tim was bitten, turning slowly. Ben killed him in mercy, but the twist returning home, Ben's reflection shows bite marks, the curse self-inflicted in denial. But wait, that's not the end. In reliving these tales, I've realized a pattern. Each vacationer brought something back, a shadow that lingers. The shocking revelation. These stories aren't separate, they're connected through a single entity, a parasitic horror that jumps from victim to victim via shared experiences. Sarah's watchers, Mark's sea creature, Alina's miners, their manifestations of the same ancient evil, feeding on fear during times of relaxation. And now, by listening, you've invited it closer, its whisper in the wind, waiting for your next vacation.